My name is Ali Fayaz. First of all, sorry for, he's calling me now. Sorry for being a bit late because some people were on the way because of traffic and they got stuck. So they called me and said they are running late, so we just start now. First thing, I would like to thank Manar Mathemati because he was the one who spoke to me. We need to have a session like this. There are a lot of students who are having problems. There are a lot of students who are having problems. And they're spending their money left, right, center and not getting the PR or whatever the path is. Yeah. So, and he guided me that I should speak to Suhail. I spoke to me and Suhail, I spoke to Suhail and he instantly said yes. So thank you very much, Suhail, for being here. And then Brother Irfan or one of you guys, I think emailed me and introducing us. And I think that was going to complement what he's going to be producing. So I think it's going to be very good. So I think one of you guys are going to be presenting it. Yes. So thank you for coming as well. First thing, toilets are on the left, if you guys want to. Another thing I would like to request, just put your mobiles on silent, please, so if I can run the session. So I'll just introduce you if I come and take over and start. Thank you.
Thank you, Jaz bhai. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. As-salatu was-salamu ala rasulil kareem wa ahli baytihi tayyibin at-tahirin. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. First of all, I'd like to thank you, KSIJ, for creating this opportunity for our youth, which was long overdue. Thank you, Fiyaz bhai and Shabir bhai. And I think we should run such similar seminars for youth-related issues, related to international education, their social issues, and some part-time issues, or part-time job issues. So that will be good for our youth. Being the senior in the community, I think Shabir bhai is very well aware of all the issues which our youth are facing, both social and economic issues. So I won't take a long time, and I will cover my presentation in probably 20-25 minutes, which will cover a bit of introduction, what we do, introduction of the framework of the legal migration system, and some bits and pieces about what's going on in this scenario, and some future thing which is in the legislation at the Ministry of Immigration. Presentation, you're more than welcome to ask. So, next slide. So that's what my plans are. I've just explained to you these are the topics we will cover. We'll talk about the company, we'll talk about the courses you're supposed to select, your challenges, and the pathways to the permanent residency under the current immigration framework. Next. OSPAC was started in 1995 when I graduated from Sydney and started this company. It grew over the period of 24 years. Now it has 10 offices in Pakistan, 2 offices in Australia. The major focus of this company is to provide consultancy to the students who are looking for Australia. We currently represent about 40 Australian institutes, including 35 Australian government universities and some private institutes. So far, with the grace of Almighty, we have sent over 15,000 students to Australia over the period. So we have one branch in Melbourne, which provide consultancy for students, and we have a bigger branch in Sydney, which provides immigration as well as education consultancy for the students, those who are on shore. Next, please. So this is a list of the universities which are directly represented by OSPA. You can see there are G8 universities, all the government universities whom we are working with and promoting both onshore and offshore. Firstly, I will touch on the topic, the things which students need to know when they first arrive or even before they arrive here. The major mistake they commit is selecting a wrong course, or selecting a wrong university, or selecting a wrong region. They only discover when they land here, and then the challenges starts. I come across dozens of students, those who has not considered selecting the right course while they are there. They were so overwhelmed and excited in getting the visa, and they didn't even bother what their pathways are. And that's the common mistake which normally all the international students do. But if they have done their homework right at home, by knowing the laws and regulation, by meeting the right representative of the university, they would be able to comprehend to take the right step. By taking a wrong course or a wrong university or a wrong region, which may cost you thousands and thousands of dollars. Number two, wastage of time. And number three is the sheer embarrassment, because people have limited resources and limited time. Once they come here, they see a wrong course, they've already spent money on the first semester, 10, 15 grand, and they don't have the capacity to pay for the second semester, and now they are panicked. They are in a new culture, they have a lot of social, cultural, and economic challenges. And now they are youth, they are aged between 18 to 25. They have never come across a situation whereby they have to make a rational decision. So they land here, they get engaged into a company. That company may be a taxi driver company, or people, those who have no goals of educational goals. Their objective is to make $100 a day. They don't care about in 2 years, 3 years down the track. And that's where the trap is. You look for the short-term goals, and you forget about the long-term goals. And then after 2-3 years, when your visa is about to expire, you realize that you have not achieved anything so far. So that's what the outcome is. And by that time, it's too late for you to make a decision. So selecting a right course at the right time, the beginning of the process, is the key to the success. So that's a bit of a summary for those who are new to the system, how the onshore pathway to the PR works. You are a student, you graduated in 2 years, then you apply under any of these three schemes. You have three options. Option one is the skill independent. So if you have the skill which is accessible and which falls into the SOL list, and you're meeting the points, you can apply on shore. The second is skill nominated visa 190, which is the state nominated. So that gives you an extra 10 points. And then you have 489. It has a different class of visa, a different outcome, and different requirements after the issuance of visa. In that visa, you're supposed to be living in Wagga Wagga, Bakasmash, or Ararat, or somewhere, and you're supposed to live there for 4 years. And you have to meet certain criteria before you are granted or finally permanent residency. So each class has its own merits and demerits, and each class has its own qualifying points, which varies from time to time depending on the demand. I'll go through each of them later on. So that was a bit of a summary how the system works. Currently, these are the courses which are in demand. Unfortunately, the professional stream are more competitive these days. So that means to be a professional, you've got to score very high marks. And to score over 75 or 80 in order to qualify. But there are a number of trade-related programs. I'll give you the numbers of each in the following slides, which give you an idea that how competitive it is to fall into a professional stream rather than the trade stream. So these are the courses which are in demand these days. Nobody would have thought property value. Social work. Teaching is the most prominent, in demand. But each course has its own prerequisites. So don't be overwhelmed by looking at the new topics, because each program has its own prerequisites. Some requires an experience, some requires an Australian experience, other requires a higher IELTS or PTE score in terms of teaching. We need 8 IELTS in order to be assessed as a teacher. So there are some dilemmas attached in each of the program. These are the courses which are in the health program.
So we can ask a question in between or later?
I think they're after. Okay. So these are the programs which are in the health sector. Again, each program has its own prerequisites, like MBBS, you need to sit for Australian Medical Board exam. That has 2 phases, very difficult phases. Similarly is the dentistry. You need to be assessed by ADS, Australian Dental Council, and it has also 2 years of 2-phase program to be assessed as a dentist. Some courses are easier, like primary health care or health administration. Comparatively, the more clinical side is difficult. The administrative side of the health programs are much easier to achieve. They have a soft prerequisites in it. Next. So these are the programs for the trade. The entry point for the VET programs in order to apply for expression of interest is 65 points. And getting a PR outcome is much easier through this pathway than the professional or medical stream. But there are some legal implications in it. I will come later on, maybe in your questions, I'll probably be answering that, why it is difficult to get the VET programs PR through this pathway. So currently, all the colleges in Melbourne which are offering automotive are totally full, because that's the only profession or trade which is more promising for those who have arrived here, selected the wrong course, spent a year and a half in a wrong program, and they already have master's degree from Pakistan or Australia. Surprisingly enough, they are becoming motor mechanics these days. I would not blame them, because desperate people do desperate things. And if the outcome is positive, why not? So That's one of the options. I'm not suggesting everybody to adopt that option. That depends on person to person, their own circumstances, and the level of desperation. So there is a pathway through the wet sector, and these are the fields. The most famous is automotive, followed by vehicle, and the others, electricians and all that. So these courses are widely available in both private sector, private colleges, starting with certificate 3, 6 months, certificate 4, 6 months, and then you get the diploma, and then associate diploma, and then advanced diploma. The qualifying level of some of the program is certificate 4, which is 1-year program. It costs much, it doesn't cost you much to enroll in those programs. The average price for these diploma programs offered by many of the private colleges ranges around $8,000 to $12,000 a year. And again, the payment of those tuition fee can be paid through installments or a monthly basis. So the payment mode is very flexible. So that's why. That's the current situation. You see how competitive it is. To achieve 85 points, you got to be super hero. And an ideal person, that means an ideal age, almost perfect English, perfect in Latin, excellent GPA to achieve 85. So you should be among the top cream of those who apply. So these scores, 85, 80, I would say maybe a 5% of those who apply can achieve these points. And that's the situation today. In the past, as you may all be aware, these points, the qualifying points were 65 to 75. So if you have achieved 75 points, you are among the top. You get the invitation within 3 weeks. So see how competitive it is in all the sectors. Be just computer science, or engineering, or accounting. Next. So that's the situation for this program in 2019 to 20, which will last June 2020. The quota they have given is 1,000 visas for invitations for 189 and only 100 for 481. This is the current situation. I'll give you an example, some briefing about these columns. The first column shows the area of study you have done. The second column is the ceiling, the quota, a number of invitations available from July 2019 to June 2020. So these are the number of vacancies, I would say, or places available for which the entire lot will compete. So far, this program started on 1st of July, and on the 11th of July we've got this stats. So these are the invitations already sent, maybe in 11 days. So this quota will last, these numbers will last until June 2020. So the points will vary as the demand goes up. So it's like a pyramid. Here sits the number of vacancies and the number of applicants. So as the pyramid goes up, the more people apply, the points test goes up. That's how it works. So you can see that there are more places available if you're looking for a program in a professional stream. So that's the safest, probably, if you look at the stats, that you have more chances of getting an EOI in this stream than, I would say, an accountant or an auditor, which has a fewer numbers of vacancies. Next, please. There's again some stats for, that's the current situation. So if you look, the nurses are in a big demand, and they have a large number of vacancies available. They are looking for 17,000 nurses in the next 1 year, compared to the other professions, followed by the teacher. So if you're looking for a professional degree and about to make up mind for a professional degree program, you should consider these stats. You have more chances of getting a PR quickly, EUI, if you are in nurses stream, or you are getting a bachelor's degree or a master's degree in teaching, as long as your English is competent. I'll come to that slide where I will show the requirements for English, both PTE and IELTS. So should we move to the next one? Okay. These are the trade courses. So that for the professional stream, this is the trade program. So if you see the stats, the carpenters are in a big demand. That's not how the student system works. You will be laughing that, what you're telling us. We came here all the way from Pakistan or India and all that to become a carpenter, or to become an electrician, or to become a mechanic. Beggars might be a chooser. You see? So these are the options available. This is what this economy wants. If you want to remain here, you've got to do this. Simple as that. Because their demand based on their own economy, their own needs, rather than your desire. So if you look at the carpenters, followed by plumbers and motor mechanics. Last year, just to share information, 1,500 vacancies for motor mechanic were lapsed. There was demand for 5,500, only 4,000 people applied. So almost everybody who applied for motor mechanic stream has got the EOI. And same is the case with the nursing. The number of positions which goes lapsed because there are not many applicants available. Now I come to the 485, the post-study work visa. Probably most of you are aware of these streams. Just for the newcomers, those who newly arrived to Australia, that's the outcome of your studies. Once you finish your 2 years program, then you are either a graduate work stream or your post-work stream. The graduate work stream is for those who were granted a visa before 5th of November 2011. And the outcome of that is 18 months of work visa. And the other visa, those who arrived after that date, 2011, 5th November, they will be given a post-study work permit, which is of 2 years. So I've already explained. 18 months for those who arrived before that. And if you have done the bachelor's, the master's program, you will be given 2 years. And if you have done a master's degree, you will be given 3 years of post-study work permit. And if you have done the PhD, you are allowed to remain here with the full work right for 4 years. That's the current situation here. These are some of the requirements. The most critical thing is you've got to have the right duration for the program in order to meet the basic qualification for the grant of work visa. The duration of 2 years is defined in immigration terms as a 92 weeks of program. So if you're enrolled in a 1.5 years of program, or a program which is not lasting up to 92 weeks, so you are enrolled in the wrong program. You are not eligible to apply for post-study work permit. If you're lacking that knowledge at the time of enrollment, or at the time of selecting the course, by not looking at the duration of that program. There are a number of programs in universities which has a duration of 1 year, 1.5 years. And if you're planning to stay over, if you're planning to apply for PR, or if you're planning to apply for the post-study work permit, you are in the wrong course. And some people only realize in their 3rd semester, and it's too late. So these are some prerequisites before you're granted a work permit. You have to be under 50 years of age, you're holding a valid visa, you should have the right English, which is competent 6 English, 6 each IELTS. You have adequate insurance, health insurance, you have booked for medical, you have applied for police certificate before you apply for your 485 visa. And these are the things which you should keep in mind when you're planning about 6 months or 1 year in advance. Some of these things are not readily available. So you got to plan in advance. Before your visa expires and you are looking for a work permit, these are the prerequisites. Some people make mistakes. They apply and they didn't have the right medical insurance and the visa is rejected. They will not ask you to please submit your 6 IELTS score or your insurance. You've got to make sure when you're applying at the first instance, when you're clicking submit, that means everything is already attached. Visa officer will not give you a chance. Sir, I'm waiting for that document. Please send so that I can grant you a visa. This will not happen. What will happen if your visa is rejected on a very minor ignorance, which could be insurance, which could be IELTS, which could be completion certificate, and then you are rejected, what will happen? Being an onshore applicant, you have a right to go to AAT, which is sort of a court similar to VCAT. And the queue for that is about 20 months before you are heard. Sir, I'm sorry, I failed to submit my English score at the time of application, and please forgive me and grant me a visa for 485. You have to wait to hear these words 20 months. What will you do during that period? If you are not a law-abiding student, you stay home and you are advised by one of your colleagues saying, oh, don't worry about it, just drive a cab, do a part-time job, wait for the hearing. No, it doesn't work like that in Australia. You got to prove that you are a bona fide student. Even though your application in appeal, you've got to continue your studies. You should be enrolled somewhere, achieving some score, getting some results, and at the time when the hearing starts, you should be able to prove that during that period you have been a bona fide student in order to get the visa for 485. Otherwise, you will be given 28 days to leave the country. And you have no second chance to apply for any other visa. And there are a number of Pakistani and Indian students, they fall into that trap due to lack of knowledge, due to lack of preparation for that visa, and they get the letter for 28 days departure. The only thing left is apply for protection. And that's the worst thing you do in your life, to close all your avenues of your future by applying for the protection. Protection visa is like a dead end. There is no pathway. There is no positive visa after applying for protection. It's no through road. Bangaliya. But unfortunately, most of our students, those who fall into that trap, to get a quick protection for throwing out from the country, they apply for protection, without knowing, again, what lies in future. So that means they have put a stamp on their future that there is no future. Although they will get maybe 1 year or 2 years of time period in which they can do a part-time job, make a little bit of money, but ultimate destiny is the departure. You can prolong your protection application by appealing to the minister, going to the federal court. It costs money. Costs money. So what you are working for during that period to pay to the lawyer. So who is the loser? You lost your 3 years, 4 years of your youth time, and you're paying to some other professionals, and your parents are asking what you're doing, man. You are here for 3 years. We give you so many lakhs. What have you achieved so far? And you show the 28 days of letter. What embarrassment. What outcome? You know, after 4 years of the time, it's just because you've been naive, you've been ignorant. You have not done your homework in advance. You have not prepared your future. And that comes with a calculated information and the knowledge, which you must secure. People take the Australian laws and the immigration rules very casually. फिर क्या होगा? कोई मसला नहीं. Doesn't work like that. You have to remain within the law in order to enjoy the law. I would add one more sentence. If you want to play the law, play within the boundaries of the law. Don't play with the law. समझे आप? यहाँ पर ये क्या होता है? They don't go to the college. They don't attend the university. They work 7 days a week, blindly, enjoying the good movies at home at night, going to the work in the morning, driving cabs, making $2, $3 a day, thinking that they are in the paradise. They are in the fool's paradise because they are spoiling their future. They think the good future lies ahead. But that's not the case. So please avoid such mistakes make the calculated decisions and strive for it, and you should know the law. In Australia, ignorance from the law is not an excuse. Sir, I didn't know. When your first visa was granted, all the laws were mentioned in 4-digit things, telling you what are your responsibilities, change of address, insurance, time period you can work, your visa conditions, and all that. Nobody bothers to read those letters. And those are the very critical and vital information which are issued with the grant letter. How many of you read your grant letter, 3-page grant letter? Do you know any clause of it? Have you ever read? What is 8504? What is 8534? Nobody knows. They're all on the visa. And these are the critical conditions. So that's what our mindset is. We just think a visa has been granted. No, that's a ticket to paradise. That's it. My job is over. Let's have fun. Enjoy. That's not the case. The real challenge starts after the visa grant. You've got to plan your future. So these are some prerequisites. Sorry, I prolonged and I got a bit emotional because I wanted to share my frustration which I experience every day from the students. And I think, why are they so naive? Why are they so ignorant? You've got to change your mindset. You're in a new country. You're in a new legal framework. You've got to calculate everything. You've got to keep in mind every clause of the law, which can affect your life in future. That's all. So these are some other additional requirements for the graduate work stream. So the study requirements, the assessment of your degrees requirement, and you'll nominate the occupation related to your studies. Next, please. These are the 3 streams in which you should, as a student, strive for applying for permanent residency. I've given you some overview of 489, which is a legal visa. Then you have a skill independent visa, if you don't have any relative and you have only a professional degree. And a skill state nomination, subclass 190. I'll go through each of them a little bit. Next, please. So that's the step. You prepared all your documents, you graduated, you got all your skill assessment done, you got the required English, you got medical insurance, everything. Now you're ready to apply for the expression of interest online yourself, or use any consultant. And then you wait for the outcome, depending on the scores which are in practice at that time. So these are the some points for the newcomers. That's how the points are calculated. First is the age. The maximum number you get is between 25 to 32 years of age, which is 30 points. If you're less than 25, you are disadvantaged by 5 points. And the older you get, you start reducing your points, 5 points each slab. And then you have English ability. I think my colleagues will give you more information that how to get the 20 points, the superior level English. And then you have a qualification. The highest qualification marks is training. The minimum is 5. And then you have a research, 5 points. If you have an experience, if you have 3 to 5 years of experience, you get 5. If you have 5 to 8 years, then you have 10 points. And that experience could be an Australian experience or a previous experience in your home country. As long as it's a full-time, at least 40 hours a week employment. And then there are some other points, bonus points. If you're living in a regional area, you get 5 extra points. If you have a NATI or other language proficiency, you get extra 5 points. And if your wife is or husband is a qualified person and that qualification is accessible, you get extra 5 points. So there are some bonus points as well. And then you have a nomination points. If you're nominated by an estate, you get 5 extra points. And if you are nominated by the state in a regional area, you get 10 points. So that's how the points are calculated. If you are qualifying, minimum point 65 in order to enter your data. If you are 60, 55, you're not even eligible to enter into that pool. So I'm not talking about qualifying to get the expression of interest or invitation. It is the entry point, the threshold point. It used to be 60, now they have increased to 65. So in the whole process, each qualification needs to be assessed by a relevant professional body. The most popular bodies are TRA, VETSS, ACS for computers, Engineers Australia, CPA for the accountants and auditors, chartered accountants, TRA for all the trade programs like chef, cook, pastry maker, carpenters, mechanics and all that. VETSS is for those who have the master's degree, sort of social sciences, or a business degree. That's the organization which assess your qualification. So these 5 are the most famous, but there are a number of other bodies which assess your qualification in your skills. So these are the steps I just mentioned you before you apply for the skill visa. And what are the steps involved? You're going to get your skill assessed. Then you have to select which occupation you're applying for. You applied for EOI, expression of interest. You meet the entry point 65. Your age between 18 to 45. And you have computed English, which is almost 6 IELTS each. You have good health. And you have been sponsored by the relative or a territory in order to achieve those 5 points. Next, please. If you have been invited by the immigration, so these are some points you need to consider and steps to follow. That you have a suitable skill, you have the relevant occupation, and you meet the point test system, and you are under the age of 45. And you must have achieved a nomination if you're applying under that scheme of the nomination by the state or sponsored by your relative. Next, please. So there's a one stream, as I mentioned, 489. So there are 3 areas under 489. You can be sponsored by one of your relatives who is living in low growth area in a designated area. The list of designated areas are easily available on that. You can see, like if you're living in Bekasmash, your uncle, and they're willing to sponsor you, you can get 5 points. Next, please. So that's another stream within 489. You can be nominated by one of the regional states. In this case, the the most favorite state is Tasmania these days. So these are the requirements. You must have completed a degree from there, which is lasting 2 years, and you have lived at least for 1 year's period in order to qualify for the state sponsorship. Next, please. That stream is for those who are applying under the state nomination scheme on the basis of their job they have worked. So that was the qualification based, this is the work based. And these are the criteria that that job has to be 35 hours per week. You live there for 6 months at least. And that job is in the CSOL, which is the regional shortage of job list in that particular state. Next, please. You can be sponsored by family. The family could be living there for the last 12 months, be PR or Australian resident or citizen. The relationship could be the child, sister, uncle, aunt, or grandparents. And they're willing to sponsor you. Yes, please. So that example was for the Tasmania, but there are other states, and each state has its own criteria to sponsor. For example, Northern Territory requires your 2 years of full presence and studying there before they give you a nomination. You have Adelaide, again, South Australia. They give you a state sponsorship. They have the specific occupation and a specific period you need to live there, and that varies from state to state. So Canberra, ACT, is offering state sponsorship. New South Wales has its own state sponsorship. So all the 6 states, they have their state sponsorship open. They have very criteria for giving the nomination. So you need to check which state is more suitable given your own occupation. Next, please. What that visa does. Once you are granted a 489, that will be for 4 years. You can live there in that region. You're required to live in that region for that period and work or study there. You can bring your family. You can travel to and from Australia. And you can apply for the permanent residency 887 upon completion of those 4 years. So there's another step involved. That's not a permanent residency. 489 is not a permanent residency. It's a temporary 4 years regional visa with some prerequisites before you apply for permanent residency 887. It's similar to 457 thing. You have a few prerequisites to it. Next. So that's in summary. What you need to do before you apply: check your 65 points, submit your expression of interest, you wait for the invitation to come, and the invitation came, they will give you a few weeks to submit the original documents. You gather all the documents including police certificate, and then you apply within 60 days of receiving the invitation, otherwise that invitation will be lapsed. So that is a very calculative thing. If you have claimed in your original expression of interest for some points, say English or something, or a state sponsorship, and you are in a process of getting that document done, and in the meanwhile you received an expression of interest, based on the information we punched in, and yet you are not ready to provide that document within 60 days, you're gone. That invitation will lapse. So you miss that opportunity. Next. So that's subclass 190, state nomination. That's a procedure. And that, once you're granted, it's a permanent residency. You can do travel, you can sponsor a relative, you can work or study based on this visa. It's a permanent visa. It's not like 489. It doesn't have any prerequisites. Next. So these are some steps. Applying for 190, skill assessment. You check your age, English and all that. Then you complete the assessment, you submit the application, you get the state sponsorship, and then you apply under 190, and you wait for the invitation to come. Next, please. So that's what the English test point system is. If you have the 9 out of 9 in IELTS, you are expert in English. If you get 8.5, you're very good in English, and each has associated numbers in it. So the highest the marks is 20. Remember that slide I've shown you earlier? So it ranges from 20 marks maximum to 15 to 10 and 5 and 0. So each level has corresponding 5 points bonus in it. The highest is 20, which means if you score 9 in each band or 86 to 90 in D, I think this chart will be covered by my next presenter. Now, what is in future? What Ministry of Immigration is looking for? There are some good things coming up. If you are living in a metropolitan area, which is Sydney, Melbourne, and all other main cities, you can only qualify for 2 years of work, 2 years of post-study work visa. But there are legislation in process which may permit you to have over 3 to 4 years of work visa if you are in a regional area or doing a research program. So you may qualify for 3 to 4 years of work. The new point system which is coming up and will be introduced on 16th of November 2019. It has not to do with the spouse, this new legislation. So those who are not married, they should take a photo of this slide. And when the mama asks, what kind of wife you need, you forward that to the WhatsApp. Say, Mama, this is the criteria.
Not for teacher.
All right, so if you have, there's one more point I'll tell you the name. The 10 points for the spouse if they are skilled. Skilled means if they have Pakistani BCom, 2 years of any bachelor's degree which is accessible by the VET-assess, you get 5 points for your spouse. Oh, 10 points for the spouse. Currently it's 5 points. And if the territory is nominated by, or the family sponsored you, nominated by 15 compared to 10 today. And if you have a qualification which is science, technology, engineering and management, you may get 10 points. So that depends. If your degree, currently these degrees doesn't have any extra bonus points. It's a bachelor's degree or master's degree, you get 10 points or 15 points. But in future, after 16th of November, this point system will change. Even if you have done a management degree, you still get 10 points for that. Now, there's a bonus point. If you're not married, there's a merit to it. You get 10 extra points. Saying, I'm a bachelor, I have no de facto wife, so give me 10 points. And then the other point is a 5 points extra if your spouse has a competent English, which is 6 IELTS and I don't know how much PTE. 50. So you get 10 points for the wife's skill qualification, accessible, and 5 points for the competent English. So the 15 points component is good if you have selected the right path. Next, please. Now, I think it's enough. I have information I've given you. These are useful. You may be able to use in making your future decisions. And I'm always available here in Melbourne. You can take my number. I'm available even if I'm traveling overseas. You can text me on WhatsApp, contact me. My office is in Sydney. They can help you out for any information related to admission, academics, or the migration. We have a full license of working on your behalf for immigration cases. So my staff in Sydney, Mr. Muzammil, who's currently at training in Bond University at the moment, otherwise he would have joined me. So he will help you out. I'll give you my contact, so you can contact me, or if I'm not available, you can contact my office in Sydney. And if it's related to offshore, like Pakistan, you can contact my head office in Lahore, or any relevant city, Karachi, Lahore, Islamabad, anywhere else. So that's all from me, and I hope you have enjoyed the information and be able to make a good decision for future. The purpose of this whole seminar was not focused on economics. I'm not here to generate money from you people. I'm not here to drum up my own business. I'm one of you from your community. If God has given me a skill and knowledge, then I'm obliged, I'm compelled to share that knowledge with you. वो आपकी मेरे पास अमानत है, which I have to deliver you honestly. So यहाँ मेरे आने का मकसद बिजनेस नहीं है, आप लोगों को सही रहनुमाई देना है. So please, if you have any question, feel free to ask.
Excuse me, for regional visa, so should be just living or living a study or working together? For example, if I live in a selected regional and then my workplace would be in a monocular area, so is that possible? Or I have to just living and working in that region?
You've got to demonstrate to that state that you have a desire and to live in that state even after you have been granted. For that you need to demonstrate that your work or your study is in that region. So you can't have the work somewhere else and study somewhere else, and yet you are claiming the points.
For example, my major is HR, Human Resource Manager, and then it is so hard to find a job in some region. And then, but I found, for example, just 10 minutes driving between that region and the other one. But the workplace is not in their region list. But so it is so hard to find a job like some occupation like engineering or like my position. It is so hard because this region is not developed as
Look,
I can find easily the
I got your
occupation.
point. I got
Yeah.
your point. First, you have to look in that state where you are planning to live, whether your nominated occupation is in the CSOL or not. So if that doesn't exist, no matter whether you live forever, And no matter where you work, you are still unable to get the points. So you got to check the CSOL. CSOL is the list published by that particular state in order to qualify for the nomination, and that particular occupation has some prerequisite attached. That means some occupation requires to work within that state for 6 months or 1 year. And some of the occupations which are in a big demand have a softer entry prerequisites. So answer to your question is subject to that state and subject to that CSOL. You need to be checking with that state, and then you will be able to get the answer.
And definitely I should work in that region.
Yes, yes. Any other question? Yeah, is there a question?
Regarding my 2 years completion of education, if I'm selecting a master's in teaching, let's say, and if I'm able to do a summer semester and completing a course within 18 months, would that still be counted as a 2 years study program?
Look, if that course is registered with a relevant assessing body, in your case, Australian Institute of Teaching and Learning is AISL, and you need to check with them. But generally, if it is a full-time teaching program, normally in the prospectus, they show you that this program is fully accredited by Teaching Association of Australia. You're fine. That course has to be registered for 2 years. That doesn't mean that you need to complete it in 2 years. It's a bit of change. If you take the summer semester, you have sacrificed your holidays, and you have completed the advanced work which you need to do in March to June, you'll still be able to get points for that.
Okay, so if I'm applying for 489, do I still need to do professional year?
If you want to increase your points, yes. But if you think you can achieve those 65 points or higher without professional year, that's not compulsory.
And what about trade course? Trade, if I'm going towards trade, do I still have to get more points to achieve particular score?
But that's your choice.
Like what's the
You
minimum?
need to study in the trade program.
Yeah, if I study in the trade program, what's the minimum score I have to achieve?
Sorry, what was it?
If I'm studying in the trade course and I completed the trade course, what's the minimum score do I have to achieve?
That depends which trade you're taking. If you're taking the motor mechanic, as I mentioned, so it's easier to get the 65 points and you can get the expression of interest. But if you're taking another course which is not in a big demand, there's not many vacancies available, you might end up with 70 or 75 points for that. And if you don't do the professional year, that means you're lacking 5 points in it, so you need to do professional year in that. So that depends which trade you have taken. Any other questions?
Is the skill occupational list ever updated, or has it been remaining the same?
Each
Was created?
state and the federal, so there are two lists. One is the skill occupation list SOL, which is prepared by the Department of Immigration, which is federal, applicable to all states. So if your nominated occupation is mentioned there, then you can apply for expression of interest. So there's another list which is called CSO, Consolidated Skill Occupation List, which is prepared by that particular state depending on the needs of that state. So if you're applying for the nomination of that particular state, you got to see CSOL rather than SOL.
So do these lists ever get updated in the future?
Yes, yes, very frequently, very frequently.
Do they add new occupations into
Oh
it?
yes, if they delete the occupation, they add the occupation, that's what the risk is involved. So you started working for one occupation, and while you're in the middle of the achieving that, they might delete that.
So how
It's a-
often do they get
6 months. Every 6 months they update. But there are some safe occupation which remain always there. So chances of getting them deleted is very minimal because those requirements will remain constant in that particular state. So teaching, trade courses, mechanics, plumbers, social work are more safer programs because they have never been deleted. Accounting, chartered accountant, management, these are variable and risky programs for states.
How about IT? Programming.
Pretty good question. IT, it depends on each state. Some wants IT graduate with 6 IELTS and with no experience, like Canberra. Other states want 2 years of experience and full assessment by ACS. So you need to check all the 6 states. Whichever is softer for you, you apply for that.
What degree are you doing in IT?
Me?
Master's in applied IT. In applied IT.
Applied IT.
IT. Did you show, see this slide I've given you?
Yes, sir.
The software and ICT and all that. Did you see the numbers of vacancies for future in that?
Around 8,000.
8,000. So that means your chances of
Programming is big.
getting on that is much higher than the accountants and other.
Anything in the programming side of things, especially robotics,
Software,
and
yes.
software programming is going to be big in the future.
Yes.
Secondly, anything to do with data. Data
Yes.
analysts, data engineers, data scientists, huge demand in the market.
And that demand is increasing every year. So there are new avenues opening in
So
data
it's already set.
analytics.
That's what
And that's, so depends which area of IT you are in, software, ICT, data analysis, hardware and all that.
Not much hardware, but data and programming is one of the highest.
But the safest thing is, if you're doing a software and if you like to avoid any risk in future, and if you can manage to enroll yourself in a regional area, that's even safer. So you get more points, more chances of getting PR. And another dilemma which I normally observed in the students, once they have landed into one state, and if they are given an opportunity for a long-term PR thing in another state or another region, they are reluctant to go. They feel so comfortable in this environment, making a small little bit money and spoiling their future rather than, taking some hard time currently and enjoying the rest of your life. So 90% of the students, they refused taking up that option. Whereas in my knowledge, I would advise, घर से तो आप आ ही गए हैं यहाँ पर। तो अगर आपका objective यहाँ पूरा नहीं हो रहा, what's the point in living in Melbourne? Go to Geelong, go to Ballarat, go to Ararat for 2 years. Still maintain your contacts here. या फिर आप ट्रेन पे 50 मिनट की वो है राइड है आपकी काम के लिए कुछ ना कुछ हार्डशिप आपको उठानी पड़ेगी. Don't live in a comfort zone. You got to work hard towards it. Yeah, you can do it. I used to drive cab 26 hours in Sydney. If I tell you my story, that how I completed my 2 degrees and how I have got to this position, you will be amazed to know. I used to sleep in my car. I used to have my bedding in my boot. I used to drive 36 hours.
Sounds so good.
So everybody has to work hard. I still remember those days. I really enjoyed it. Working hard is not a shame. It's a pride for yourself.
You have to be sincere with your future.
It's a pride for yourself. Taking hardship for future, it's a pride. It's not something you should be ashamed of. So the dilemma of our youth is they don't look for the future. They're not ready to do a hard job. They want a better future. I think that's all from my side.
Thank you.
I keep speaking for all
Thank you
night.
very much.
So thank you very
It
much.
was very
for
nice.
taking all the years.
Mashallah.
good. It was very informative, I guess. Just a few things. What we are planning is to have a break, 10-minute break or something, and then we resume back so we can have some coffee or tea or whatever. So you guys can help this. It was very good.